Hey everyone, Tommy here. In this video, I'll be doing a summary of the book Formation, The Making of Nigeria from Jihad to Amalgamation by Fola Fagbule and Fawehinmi. This book, as the name already implies, tells the story of Nigeria's formation, the various events and actors that combined in the formation story of the country that we today call Nigeria. But before I continue, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification to get notified every time I upload a new video. Now, the book, interestingly, was written by two young men, Fola Fagbule and Fawehinmi, who both have professional backgrounds in the finance industry, and they did actually admit that they were not trained historians, which all the more makes the writing of a book of this magnitude quite impressive. Formation was published by Cassava Republic and is currently available in certain bookshops in Nigeria and in the UK as well. From what I gathered, it's yet to be released in the US as of the time of making this video. But you can check online, you never can tell. And I have also left the Amazon link to the book down below. Now, what happens is if you buy through my link, whenever it is that you buy through my link, I get some stipends on Amazon paid partnerships. So you can just help my channel and do that. Now, in any case, the book itself has 10 chapters spread across 325 pages without including the acknowledgements and bibliography. This makes it a relatively easy read, quick read for any avid reader. I actually completed it in about 1 week because, I still had my 9 to 5 to attend to anyway. Now, the first chapter gives us an insight into the geographical landscape of the areas around the River Niger where the bulk of the action in the entire book happened. But I particularly had some difficulty with that chapter because I had limited imagination of what was being described without the help of a map, which would have been nice if one had been included in the book. One of the key points I gleaned from the first chapter was the cruel hand that geography dealt us. This is a point I've also made in another article that I wrote a while back. You can find a link to that article in the description down below. Diving further into the book, the formation story starts with Usman Dan Fodio's Jihad in 1804, which brought the various independent Hausa states into a loose governance entity in the Sokoto Caliphate. While this was going on, another event that will have a significant impact on Nigeria was happening in faraway London, several miles across the Atlantic Ocean, as the British House of Commons in 1807 passed a bill abolishing slave trade. These rather seemingly incongruent events and actors not known to one another will collide on the Niger decades later as the book takes us through the lives of several actors and events at various points in time. One of the things you notice is the scope and level of organization which some of these ancient African kingdoms possessed, unlike popular depictions in Nollywood and some literature. I imagine the level of organization that would have been required to manage the Gobir army, which had foot soldiers numbering 100,000 with 10,000 cavalry to boot. Dear Nollywood, you should do better. In any case, the formation story takes us through the conquest and annexation of neighboring independent kingdoms into the caliphate, as well as the assault on the Borno Empire, which gives us some insight into the exchange between two accomplished African rulers in Usman Dan Fodio and El Kanemi, who would later on become the May of Borno, whose dynasty still rules till today. From the revolution in the north, the story takes us down the River Niger in Yoruba country, where we catch the previously dominant Oyo Empire in terminal decline, following the secession of Ilorin under Afonja, yes, the same treacherous Afonja, and the subsequent turmoil that followed for decades, leading us into the story of the rise of the Egba kingdom under a liberal Shodeke. This also helps us connect to the great man Samuel Ajayi Crowther, the former slave boy turned priest and later black bishop. Personally for me, Ajayi Crowther's story was a very interesting one, and on the back of this book and the facts that it throws up about this great man, I'm currently working on a documentary on this great African, which will be out very soon. So watch this space and please hit the subscribe button on my channel to get a grip of Ajayi Crowther's intriguing story when it finally hits YouTube, and I promise that is very soon. The story continues with the brutal war between the Egbas and their fierce neighbors, the Dahomey, most notable for their dreaded all-women regiment, Dahomey Amazons or Minos. The book also takes us to the coastal city of Lagos in the battle between Kosoko and Akitoye, which lays the groundwork for the full annexation of Lagos by the British. Certain interesting names also come up, like the popular Efunroye Tinubu and Efunshetan Aniwura, who were both accomplished traders of their time. Looking back at the various depictions of these two women in history, one cannot but notice the inconsistency and underlying misogyny with which they are usually mentioned. While they were both slave traders, yes, it's obvious that it wasn't unique to them. That was mostly a norm in their time. Anyway, I think this book did a better job with its treatment of these women. That's my opinion. Another interesting chapter was a certain John the Baptist Desalu, who was captured and enslaved in the war between Abeokuta and Dahomey and was sold to the New World despite attempts to get him back. How he finally regained his freedom in Havana and thanks to the CMS was reunited with his family in Abeokuta. His story ends with him being excommunicated from the church for taking a second wife after his return. What a man. The formation story also connects us with events across other areas that will later become absorbed into the territory of Nigeria in modern times. As we see the Arochukwu Confederacy in eastern Nigeria, Jaja of Okpobo and his rise to power and then dethronement, Nana Olomu of the Shekiris, as well as events in the Benin Kingdom and its final annexation in 1897 through an expedition that was led by a certain Sir Ralph Moore. An interesting subplot here was the death of this Ralph Moore in faraway London as he committed suicide due to PTSD. But the story in Benin was that he received his due recompense from the gods for daring to desecrate the Oba's palace. We also see the fall of the Nupe kingdom and finally the caliphate itself under a certain king in the north, the Lord Lugard himself. The book actually spends a lot of writing time on this character whom we first come in contact with in chapter 9 of the book as a young boy who'd been born in India in rather very difficult circumstances. We see his progression into the British military, his encounter in East Africa, the unrequited love episode and desolation that followed with redemption in Nigeria. Personally for me, I think the book gave an unbiased reporting of the man Lugard, in that the writer simply provided the facts and allowed us, the readers, form our own opinion about this very divisive character without them imposing their views on us. I did mention something along this line in my review of the Netflix documentary Journey of an African Colony by Olasupo Shashore, where I did mention that the narrator seemed very biased against Lugard, so readily piled on him without giving room for much nuance in allowing us understand the motivations behind some of his actions. In any case, I think Formation did a good job in that regard, and their treatment or telling of the story allows one a balanced view of this figure in terms of how his troubled childhood could have contributed to his lack of tact and fueled his propensity to settle all issues with force, which ironically seems to be the inherent trait found in most rulers in Nigeria even today. So we see Lugard crushing the northern kingdoms and practically spoiling for fights even when one was not necessary. He succeeded in bringing the century-old caliphate under his control with the assault on Sokoto in 1904. The book then goes into the discontent within the various entities that now make up this sprawling British Niger Empire, culminating in the Adubi War and loss of Abeokuta's independence, and then the final amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates in 1914. In all, it was an exhilarating read that could be very helpful for anyone trying to understand how the country Nigeria came about and why it is the way it is today. It gives us very quick but valuable insights into the lives of various characters that contributed in one way or the other to the formation of the country called Nigeria. I particularly liked that it humanized some of these characters in ways that most books on African history do not. You read descriptions such as the liberal Shodeke, the visionary Sultan Bello, or the sophisticated Captain Labulu Johnson, which are usually not adjectives associated with pre-colonial African leaders, as there seems to be a subtle speak of being barbaric and unsophisticated in most of literature about these people. But this book does that differently, and even in the mistakes that these leaders made, it gives a background as to how sometimes the necessities of time could have forced their hands or their decisions, which in hindsight we today may find as not very great decisions. Benefit of hindsight. Anyway, reading through the book as well, I also came to the realization that for a lot of the problems that we face as Nigerians today, they're unique. They are more or less the same problems that those who have occupied this space in centuries before us have had to deal with in one form or the other. The fact that the world was changing around the ruling elite, and for a few exceptions, most of these rulers never seemed to be able to rise up to the occasion or provide the type of forward-thinking leadership that would have been required to get them out of the jam until change was forced upon them, was quite befuddling. And this provides some great lessons for leaders today in this age and time. We must either evolve or we die. I imagine the sort of effort it must have taken in trying to create a single story out of sometimes unrelated events and characters that were separated by geography, by culture, and by time. But I think that largely the authors pulled this off successfully in giving us something that's very well researched and quite easy to read. Reading through it, I could also see the possibility of diving deeper into the lives of some of those characters, especially in movie form. Nollywood, over to you. Lastly, a question that this book left me with is the survival of Nigeria itself. Formation left me wondering if Nigeria could really survive as a prosperous single entity. I don't know, but one thing that became clear to me is that its ruling elite must be ready to rise to the demands of nation building away from their self-seeking ways if this country will ever have a chance to fulfill its immense potentials. But so far, such visionary leadership is still lacking, and maybe, just maybe, a new generation of Nigerians will emerge with the right mindset, with the right orientation, the balanced worldview and skill sets that's needed to achieve this wondrous task of moving this nation forward. In any case, I will highly recommend this book to anyone trying to understand Nigeria. It is indeed a good place to start from. And thanks for watching this video. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the notification. See you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.